That's right. So I'm going to talk to you guys real quick about you guys who are considering driving your VW Bug Bus as a daily driver. And be sure to stick around to the end of the video. I'm going to talk to you guys about really the real reason why not to drive one, but I'm going to talk to you guys who maybe are trying to do this as a daily driver and thinking about it too, and some of the disadvantages and things that you might want to really check out before you tend to do this. Number one is the engine parts are becoming more scarce. So if you're on long road trips, make sure that you are connected to the Samba and have a good cell phone charger in your car, or battery bank if you're driving 6 volt. I really wouldn't recommend driving 6 volt as a full-time driver. It's really dangerous with the brightness of the tail lights. They're just not bright enough, especially with an old car like this one. It is fun to drive. I drive it, but every time I get in it, really, I feel like I'm riding my motorcycle, taking my hands, and it's actually more dangerous to me than the motorcycle, because the motorcycle I can have a lot of outs. The car is bigger, and you just don't have as many outs. Many places you can duck or go between cars or whatever. But one of the things is the parts are becoming more scarce. The other thing is the Volkswagen maintenance is gonna really drive you nuts as a full-time driver daily. Adjusting the valves all the time, retorquing the heads, checking and adjusting the brakes. The quality of the parts for the brakes are not as good as they were. I would highly recommend, if you're going to drive it as a full-time daily driver, definitely get disc brakes for the car. I don't know about the rear ones, but at least for the front, depending on the rear, you'd want. I don't know if they have them or not, but the ones that have a operating e-brake are absolutely a must. So, that being said, the other things that, especially if it's an early car, the guys that are driving these things daily now are usually driving one from the 60s, late 60s, early 70s that are all 12 volt. The windshield wipers, if you're going to drive full-time daily driver, that full-time daily driver for your windshield, you got a flat windshield. If you're driving in the rain, you're going to go a lot slower than the most of the traffic, because you can't see as good in the VW, and your stopping distance isn't as good because of the size of the tires and stuff like that. People go, oh, I'll put wider tires, I'll put all this stuff. You really can't modify them enough. The weight of the front end is very light. They do not stop as good in the rain as a regular car. They do not at all. And I'm going to talk about that at the end of the video, so stick around. We're going to talk about a near-miss accident that I had, that I would be dead if I was driving this car as a daily driver. So the wipers don't work very well. In fact, a lot of the wiper blades, the early ones, are not available. They're poor quality. So in the rainy days, you're going to have to drive something else. You really need a second car, so this really wouldn't be your primary daily driver. This would have to be a secondary daily driver to use. On the roads, if you're driving on the freeways, it depends on where you're at. There's guys in New Zealand driving daily. Now, that's okay if you're in a small city. Maybe you're driving back and forth to work. Winter, come on. You're going to take this thing out in the snow. I mean, hey, they work great. They were great cars in the snow back when they were built, but the undercarriage and stuff, a lot of people, the undercarriage is pretty much lost most of its rust stuff underneath. You're gonna have to really do some serious rust stuff, and you're still gonna have major amounts of rust with this car at this point in its life. For that reason, I wouldn't really recommend using it at all in the winter. If you're in a place where there's snow, this is a classic car. You really don't like the rubber and stuff like that's not as good a quality as it used to be. The parts, like I said, a lot of them are really, really inadequately made. Even the German stuff, points. You're gonna have to go with a electronic distributor for sure. The points and stuff and condensers are poor quality. And you're also going to be going a lot slower than traffic unless you do some major upgrades to your transmission gearing. So with all those things being said, I highly would not recommend using a stock bug. You'd have to do a lot of modifications to it to make it a daily driver. I really wouldn't recommend it. But with that being said, I'm going to tell you, I would be dead right now if I was driving this car. And I'm going to tell you about a near miss accident I had. So I was getting on the freeway. I was on the right lane in my Jetta TDI 2009 sport wagon, and without the braking system in that car, today's roads and the amount of traffic, especially if you're in California, Southern California, or even the Bay Area, is really bad too. But and there's terrible drivers out there, tons of them. There's terrible drivers all over the states, all over the place, especially in Florida and in South North Carolina. Oh my God, crazy. So there's some really good drivers too. There's some really, really, really bad ones. It's just like, oh my God, do you only drive once a month or what? So anyway, so I was getting on the freeway, and I was on the freeway for a while in my TDI sport wagon, and I just got on maybe quarter mile so, and I'm looking at this truck in the middle lane, and there's a K-rail to the right because they're doing a road repair, and I look at this truck in the middle lane, and he's not getting over, and his signal isn't on, and so he was in the middle lane, and so I decided, well, I'm just gonna slowly accelerate past this truck and get around him, because obviously he's not getting over to the right lane, even though there's a giant space for him to do so, and he doesn't have his signal on. So I started to speed up, and then I got up to about mid trailer. Now, mind you, I have a K-rail to the right. I have no place to go, and I get about mid trailer, and I'm going probably 65, and all of a sudden the signal turns on the truck, and he starts to get over immediately. Okay, so what do you do in that situation? You're driving a VW Bug. That truck would turn this thing into a complete mess. They do not have the same safety equipment as the newer cars. Even with airbags, I would be lucky to survive, even in the Jetta. And so I immediately stood on the brake pedal with everything I had, and with the four-wheel ABS system that's in that car, I can stop probably faster than just about anything else I've ever driven. And I've driven a lot of cars, you guys. I mean a lot of cars. And that braking system in the Volkswagen and I have, I even upgraded the pads to the ceramic, and man, that thing stops on a dime. It's got 17-inch wheels, they're wide, it stops super fast. And I hit the ABS system. I pulled completely to the right, rubbed the tires against the K-rail. I could smell the rubber from the tires touching the K-rail, the bottom edge of the K-rail, because the K-rails are shaped like this, right? So the bottom edge is about 4 inches up, and it's straight up and down on that first 4 inches, and then or 2 inches or something like that, and then it goes up at an angle and then goes up. So I wasn't hitting the K-rail with the body, but I was touching it with the tires. And in 2 seconds, I went from 70 miles an hour to 35, and then immediately, as soon as I saw the trailer, and I was actually, the tires missed me, the back two tires missed me, and there's that bumper that goes across the back of the trucks, and if you notice, that bumper is a little more narrow than the back wheels are. My front bumper got underneath that bumper, and I just passed him. I just about hit the mud flaps. That's how close I was. If I was driving anything else, even this, especially one of these, I would have gotten hit by that truck, and it would have just turned this thing into a freaking mess. It would have just turned it into complete and utter mess of metal, and I would have been dead. There's no way you'd survive that. With those big tires coming at you, they just drive right over you in this car. These things are just not that strong. The body on them doesn't have any safety equipment. They don't have any strength. When you're doing that as a daily driver, you're really taking your life into your own hands. So, is it really worth it to be cool, to have a cool car that you drive every day? IMO, not really. If you have one, have something else that you drive to. Don't drive it in the winter. Don't take it out in traffic on highways, when there's a lot of traffic. Try and stay away from that. If you want to survive and you want to have fun with it, try and do that when the traffic is light. If you're using it as a daily driver, you're really taking your life in your own hands. So I did make it, and I made it past. And as soon as I hit that back bumper, as soon as I saw, I had to immediately again accelerate up to 55. So I dropped from 70 down to about 35 in 2 seconds, and then immediately sped up back up to 55 and was on the back of that bumper of that truck so that the person behind me didn't wreck into me. So anyway, could never do that in an old Bug. There's no way. In fact, there's very few cars that could have done that. So having a good, safe vehicle as your primary driver is really important. I can't stress that enough. So a lot of people are just trying to do this and thinking it's cool, make videos in it and stuff, daily driver type of thing. Use it as a second car or something like that, but not daily driver. Don't use it as your primary car. Talk to you next video. Please like, share, and subscribe.